Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Kevin Asani, and you are watching the Progressive Square. So glad to have you guys back with me. I actually took the last weekend off. I had my birthday on Monday, and I also got a new little kitty. Some of you on Twitter may have seen that. So I was a little bit busy kind of taking care of him and then spending time with family and everything. So I was, I had a pretty kind of a busy weekend, and then going kind of into the next week as well. So I just decided to give myself a little break, but so glad to have you, so glad to be back, and glad to have you guys with me. So before we get started here, don't forget to check out my Patreon page at patreon.com/progblacksmith. If you can become a patron and give me a generous contribution, it would be greatly appreciated. Also, for more information about this podcast, check out hashtag #TheProgSquare on Twitter. That will direct you to all of my live broadcasts on Periscope, as well as every segment I post on YouTube. So let's get to the first topic here. Recently, Bernie Sanders, he released his criminal justice plan. Essentially, his kind of the way he's going to address, mass incarceration, criminal justice, legalization of marijuana, stuff like that. Stuff that involves, obviously a lot of people being put into jail and stuff unjustifiably, and this is something he's been actually talking about for many, many years. A lot of Democrats have not. Somewhat, in some cases or another, you could say that like a lot of black lawmakers, African American lawmakers, have been addressing this issue, but not as much as you would hope, and they've definitely gotten criticism for that. Bernie has been very good on this issue. This is something that he was addressing all the way back in the 90s when the crime bill kind of was in debate, and that was under Bill Clinton. So he was very passionate about it back then, and he's definitely wanting to address it right now as well. So I'm going to go over the criminal justice platform that he laid out on his website, which is berniesanders.com, and he has a section for each issue that he addresses. So I just wanted to give you guys the bullet points. It's a very, very long, I wouldn't say article, but it's kind of like a description of, his plan. And I was just going to go over the bullet points with you guys. You guys can check out the, full thing. I'm going to leave the link below in the description box. And we're just going to go over these bullet points and then just kind of kind of go over it and talk about it as we're going through it. So the plan is called, based on the website, the plan is called Justice and Safety for All. And then he quotes Nelson Mandela here, who says, "It is said that no one truly knows a nation until one has been inside its jails." It's a very good quote. So he just gives kind of a brief introduction here, and then let me get onto the specific parts that he explains here. So the first bullet point is end profiteering in our criminal justice system. And that mainly has to do with for-profit prisons, how people, basically go into jail, and then the companies that, own those jails, they profit off of people being in those jails. So especially when it comes to, like I said before, legalization of marijuana. That's a big thing that should happen, because right now it's obviously not legal all over the country, and people just get thrown in jail for even possessing marijuana or even smoking a little bit. So that's happened a lot, especially among the black community and also the Hispanic community as well. So it says, as president, Bernie will ban for-profit prisons, make prison phone calls and other communications such as video chats free of charge, audit the practices of commissaries, and use regulatory authority to end price gouging and exorbitant fees, incentivize states and localities to end police departments' reliance on fines and fees for revenue, remove the profit motive from our re-entry system and diversion, community supervision, or treatment programs, and ensure people leaving incarceration or participating in diversion, community supervision, or treatment programs can do so free of charge. And then the next one is end cash bail. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Just, people that are being forced to have to pay, ridiculous amounts of bail just to get out of, just to kind of have that period of time outside of, to be able to obviously be out of jail if they're not, obviously, like if they committed a murder or something, obviously they're going to stay in jail. But when it just comes to times when they're, the process is kind of on hold, they get to go out on bail. He wants to end cash bail. And then, as President Bernie will, and the use of secured bonds in federal criminal proceedings, provide grants to states to reduce their pretrial detention populations, which are particularly high at the county level, and require states to report on outcomes as a condition of renewing their funding. Withhold funding from states that continue the use of cash bail systems, ensure that alternatives to cash bail are not leading to disparities in the system. The next one is transform the way we police communities. This is a very long one. Basically it just says that the first one says rescind former Attorney General Jeff Sessions' guidance on consent decrees, revitalize the use of DOJ investigations, consent decrees, and federal lawsuits to address systematic constitutional violations by police departments, ensure accountability, strict guidelines, and independent oversight for all federal funds used by police departments and federal programs that provide military equipment to local police forces. So this was really long. You guys can check out the rest of that one. The next bullet point is, provide more support to police officers and create a robust non-law enforcement alternative response system. And that's also a pretty long one. You guys can check out the bullet points there. Ensuring all Americans due process. That's pretty straightforward. It's just, he says that the criminal justice system is rigged, and a lot of, obviously, profit interests are being put over billion-dollar industries, and like the bail bondsman, as he mentioned, he wants to end cash bail, so that's kind of tied in with that a little bit. A lot of times, he also says that, a lot of times the size of your bank account has a big effect on whether you do go into jail. So, if you're a rich guy, especially a rich white guy, you're some sort of CEO of some bank, you don't go to jail for the crimes you commit. Putting aside people like, Bernie Madoff or something, but like other than that, you pretty much get away with, rigging committing crimes as a white man, as a rich white man, even if you're a rich black man too, in many cases. But a rich white man, many times, a lot of these bankers and stuff, CEOs and stuff, they get away with doing a lot of the things they do, and nothing ever gets done as far as, holding them accountable. And then he says here, he also wants a right to counsel. He wants to ensure accountability and fairness in prosecution. He wants to end mass incarceration and excessive sentencing. And with that, he also wants to abolish the death penalty. Bernie has always been against the death penalty. Way too many politicians are in favor of it. Even somebody like Kamala Harris, which is not surprising, she's flip-flopped on the death penalty. She says she's in favor, but then as Tulsi Gabbard exposed her to be, she's, held somebody in jail, on death row, actually not even in jail, but on death row, which is, you're on death row and then eventually you're put to death, based on the death penalty, process. And she kept that person on death row and, possibly going into death penalty. And she, but then she goes and says, I'm against the death penalty. So, I don't know. She's obviously all over the place on that one. But that's something that Bernie wants to put a stop to, which is very good. He wants to end the war on drugs and stop criminalizing addiction. Very, very good. That's legalizing marijuana. He doesn't want to legalize all drugs, though, which is interesting. And he talked about this on the Joe Rogan podcast a little while back, a couple weeks ago, and he says, no, I don't support, criminalizing all drugs. He probably sees drugs like cocaine and, heroin and stuff like that. I don't know. He sees that as too too harsh. I don't know. I mean, I don't agree with that, but that's what he believes. I think we should, honestly, I think we should decriminalize and legalize all drugs, and just sell them, as if they're sold anywhere else, just like marijuana is sold. In California, where I live in this state, you're allowed to go into a marijuana shop and purchase marijuana. Why shouldn't you be able to do that with any other drug? Of course, those are all very hard drugs, but I mean, if you, again, as we know, if you keep it illegal and you don't allow it to be kind of on the, allowed to kind of exist on its, normal level of just anything else that's out there, then people are going to end up selling it on the black market, just like they do with, just like they did when alcohol was prohibited. So that prohibition of alcohol, people sold it on the black market, and all the gangs and mafia and mob and shit, they all benefit off of that. And that's exactly what's happening with all the other drugs out there, not only marijuana. So I mean, that's why I think we should legalize all drugs, legalize, tax, regulate all drugs. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Here it says, treat children like children. Let me just read this part because I want to get into the detail of it. It says, we must end the school to prison pipeline. Black students, even in preschool, are nearly 4 times as likely to be suspended as white students, putting them at greater risk of falling behind and getting caught up in the juvenile justice system. Black and brown students and students with disabilities are more likely to be subjected to exclusionary discipline measures than their peers. When a child is pushed out of school, they lose instructional time and are more likely to become involved with the juvenile and adult justice systems. Let's see the next one. Next one says, reform our decrepit prison system to make jails and prisons more humane. So, I don't know if you guys have seen, there's I believe it's a YouTube clip. I mean, Kyle Kalinske from Secular Talk covered it, but he covered a part of one of Michael Moore's movies where he actually went to Norway and he checked out Norway's prison system, and he checked it out, and he saw that it was it was amazing. Going to jail in Norway, it's like you're living like a great life, and you're actually having an experience of, what do they call it? Kind of like you're feeling more wholesome again. You're feeling more, like you're not put into like a solitary confinement. You're not, you're able to kind of adjust, because what they do is, instead of having to put you in solitary confinement, they let you ride bikes around. They let you, play in the yard, and they don't put you on, 23-hour lockdown and stuff like that. They treat you very humanely and allow you to go back into society again as like a normal person, instead of somebody that's disturbed, fucked up, and just totally just being treated like shit, being treated like an animal. Not even the ways animals should get treated, but that's how they get treated too. Humans, animals, they don't deserve, nobody gets to should get treated like that, whether they're an animal or a human. But unfortunately, they end up treating humans like animals, and then they treat animals like animals, which is, ridiculous on its face. So, that's something that's going on in a lot of Scandinavian countries. Norway is just one example. I'm sure it's pretty good in a lot of other European and Scandinavian countries as well. So that's something that Michael Moore covered in one of his movies, and I remember watching it. Ever since I watched that, I was like, damn, that's the kind of system we need in America. And that's something that Bernie wants to, he wants to make existing in this country too. And that's great. I think that's a great thing. And he wants to end solitary confinement, access to free medical care in prisons and jails, living wages and safe working conditions, because a lot of times obviously people that are in jail, they work, and it makes sense to give them a decent wage. Don't give them slave labor, and then just a bunch of other things here. And then the next one is ensure a just transition post release. So it says make expungement broadly available, remove legal and regulatory barriers, and facilitate access to services so that people returning home from jail or prison can build a stable and productive life. That's kind of similar to his idea of reforming the decrepit system and make jails and prisons more humane, because then, again, you don't have to deal with kind of going out into the real world all fucked up, basically. And then here it says, and the next one is end cycles of violence and provide support to survivors of crime. It says stop the cycle of violence by prioritizing the most serious offenses, provide adequate support to crime survivors, reverse the criminalization of disability. So he wants to reversing criminalization. It's kind of talks about, so here the first part says is all too often people with disabilities, especially people of color with disabilities, face violence from law enforcement. This requires then just training. It requires accountability. Approximately half of all people who die in police-involved shootings have a disability. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, I remember that. There's been situations where they've shot a poor, black man, white man, whatever. That's kind of, he's got some sort of disability. Maybe he's schizophrenic. Maybe maybe he has some sort of a leg injury. Who knows? He can't walk maybe, so he's in a wheelchair. He might be kind of he might have some sort of PTSD of some sort, maybe some CTE, head trauma issues. So that causes obviously their mental stability to not be very good. So Bernie wants to, help those people not have to suffer so much, obviously punishment and discrimination from the police, and to be treated in a certain way that they shouldn't be treated. The next one says investing in community living. So he wants to guarantee mental health care to people with disabilities as a human right. He wants to train, recruit, increase the number of mental health providers to provide culturally competent care in undeserved communities. Guarantee tuition in debt-free public colleges, universities, trade schools, and apprenticeship programs, and the equity pay gap in higher education attainment for people with disabilities by ensuring all students get the help they need, so they're ready for college and receive the support they need when they are in college. Next one is investing in our communities. He wants to enact a federal jobs guarantee to provide good jobs at a living wage, revitalizing and taking care of the community, pass a $15 minimum wage. Of course, if you ask Bernie, he wants even a living wage, so he wants an even higher wage. But that's a good place to start, I think, for sure. He wants to triple Title I funding, expand the IDEA, invest in after-school programs, and make other major investments in public K-12 education as outlined in our Thurgood Marshall Plan for public education and educators. And that's another one of Bernie Sanders' platforms as well. And pass the Water WATER Act to create a $35 billion annual fund to remove and replace lead pipes in communities throughout the country. So this is just a laundry list of things that he wants to do. That's the last of it there. But Bernie really wants to focus on making the lives of people that have suffered through just years and years of endless trauma, torture, like they said, solitary confinement, people that didn't deserve to go through, don't deserve to go through this kind of lifestyle just because they committed a crime. And I'm not talking about being super nice to a murderer or something. Nobody's talking about that. Granted, Bernie is in support of allowing the Boston bombers or terrorists and stuff to vote, but that's different than just letting a terrorist go out into the public after he commits a crime, or commits a murder, or kills scores of people. Nobody's talking about that stuff. But when it comes to people that have committed honestly crimes that don't they're just kind of petty crimes, right? Non-violent crimes, especially smoking marijuana, or doing some sort of drug and then getting thrown into jail for I don't know how many years because of it. That's absurd. It's a crazy idea. Anybody that supports that is honestly, you're not a humane person. And obviously we can have a debate about putting people in jail who obviously have committed terrible crimes. That's a different story, though. Nobody's talking about being nice to those kind of people, like I said. But when it comes to dealing with situations where people don't deserve to be thrown into jail for years and years and years on end for doing, very kind of minimal type crimes, such as petty theft and drug crime, drug related crimes and stuff. Yeah, I don't think you should get thrown into jail for that. I don't think you should. I think that should be a very minimum punishment. It definitely shouldn't be jail, and let alone in a for-profit jail and all that stuff. So, and these are all things that Bernie wants to address. And like I said, this is something he addressed many times when he was, debating the crime bill back in the early 90s when Bill Clinton was president. This is something that, Bill Clinton, honestly started under Bill Clinton, got worse under George W. Bush. It's nothing. It hasn't gotten much better now, obviously. It's probably getting worse, if anything, let alone with all the gun crimes. I'm sorry, the killings of innocent black and brown people, men and women, them, let alone people, immigrants being thrown into, detention centers. These are all terrible things that are happening in this country that should not be happening. So, and this is obviously something that Donald Trump doesn't give a shit about. He has not addressed it. He does not care about helping, people of the black and brown community, minorities. He doesn't give a shit. He just wants to treat them like they're nothing. And I don't know how anybody could be in support of that. It's just makes no sense. So thank God Bernie is addressing this, and his plan is very, very extensive, and it's very, very detailed. You guys can read this whole thing. It takes like 40 minutes to read it, 40 minutes to read this whole thing all, in full. And I also I'm going to put a link at the bottom in the description box. It's kind of like a roundtable discussion that Bernie Sanders has with, several, people of color who have opinions on the criminal justice system, have possibly been affected by people, have been affected by the criminal justice system. So they're, been in jail. They've, suffered, suffered what they shouldn't have suffered. And, he sits there and, they recorded it for, I think it was Bernie Sanders' official YouTube page, I believe. And they put it up there. So I'm going to post that in the description box. You guys can check that out. So, yeah. So, hopefully this is something that will definitely help Bernie Sanders, climb up in the ranks as far as, and he's already obviously one of the top candidates right now, certainly top 3 or 4 at least, depending on which polls you look at. But he's definitely the most progressive, and he's, definitely got one of the best, if not the best, name recognition next to Joe Biden, who's not doing well right now. So, Bernie can definitely take advantage of that, and I think he will. So let's get on to the next great plan that Bernie Sanders decided to address, and that is climate change. And he, of course, supports the Green New Deal, which is something that the Green Party initially put out, and it's also something that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has championed. A lot of people, I've seen some people that say, I think even the Green Party may have said it, but they're saying that, AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's plan is not quite far enough. So potentially, maybe Bernie Sanders is, maybe his plan, hopefully, hopefully it's going to be accepted by people that are in the Green Party, that are in, are kind of within the very, very progressive leftist movement. Because Bernie Sanders, as much as he's on the left, obviously he's not like a communist, right? He's not a socialist. He's a democratic socialist, and social democratic socialist. So he's, a lot of people are, take issue with him on foreign policy and stuff like that. But hopefully they can come to accept his Green New Deal idea. I think Bernie is a big believer of pushing policies that are very very progressive, very far left, so that you don't, there's no middle ground, right? We covered a story where he gave a speech and he says, I'm not in no middle ground, I'm not in favor of any middle ground, so he wanted to put forth the idea that he's not going to concede and just push for things that are just kind of in the middle. You do it as far left as possible, and then the middle ground ends up being maybe center left, right? So I think that's a good way of operating when it comes to being a progressive and being Bernie Sanders. So so he also has another page that he addresses the Green New Deal here, and so it says the Green New Deal, and let's see. The first part says the climate crisis is not only the single greatest challenge facing our country, it is also our single greatest opportunity to build a more just and equitable future. But we must act immediately. And then he just kind of gives a short introduction here. And then I'm going to read you a bunch of the kind of bullet points here he has. So first he says, as president, Bernie Sanders will avert climate catastrophe and create 20 million jobs. And then the next part says, reaching 100% renewable energy for electricity and transportation by no later than 2030 and complete decarbonization by 2050 at least. At the latest. Ending unemployment by creating 20 million jobs needed to solve the climate crisis. And he says it's going to be good paying union jobs with strong benefits and safety standards in steel and auto manufacturing, construction, energy efficient retrofitting, coding, and server farms, and renewable power plants. He wants to directly invest in an historic $16.3 trillion public investment towards these efforts. A just transition for workers, so obviously people that have been working in other forms like coal mining and whatnot, he wants to transfer them over to that, and he's going to offer them like housing assistance, job training, healthcare, pension support, 5 years of workers' current salary. The next one says declaring climate change a national emergency, saving American families money by weatherizing homes and lowering energy bills, building affordable and high-quality modern public transportation, providing grants and trade-in programs for families and small businesses to purchase high-efficiency electric vehicles, and rebuilding our inefficient and crumbling infrastructure, including deploying universal, affordable, high-speed internet. Next one says supporting small family farms by investing in ecological, regenerative, and sustainable agriculture. Justice for frontline communities. Commit to reducing emissions throughout the world, meeting and exceeding our fair share of global emissions reductions, making massive investments in research and development, expanding the climate justice movement, investing in conservation and public lands to heal our soils, forests, and prairie lands. And it says this plan will pay for itself over 15 years. And that's according to many experts that he apparently has spoken to, and he says they have scored it and said kind of scored it and its economic effects. Next part says here, let's see, it says he wants to transform our energy system to 100% renewable energy and create 20 million jobs. He says, as president, I will transform our energy system away from fossil fuels to 100% energy efficiency and sustainable energy by 2030 at the latest. Didn't you already say that before? Build enough renewable energy generation capacity for the nation's growing needs. We will end greed in our energy system, build a modern smart grid, weatherize homes. Yeah, I already said that part. Electrify homes and businesses. Phase out the use of non-sustainable sources, regulate all dangerous greenhouse gases, declare a climate emergency. So yeah, it's kind of a repeat of what he said before. When it comes to transportation, he wants to fully electrify and decarbonize our transportation sector, give grants to purchase a new electric vehicle. That's good. Vehicle trade-in program, so he wants to trade in electrical vehicles for like the regular kind of vehicles that we drive right now, obviously, that are more, that obviously put more CO2s into the atmosphere and everything. Electric vehicle charging infrastructure, which I mean, if you're in California, for example, you see a lot of those around. I see charging vehicles all over the place wherever I go. So it would be great if that's in every place pretty much. He also wants to give $407 billion in grants for states to help school districts and transit agencies replace all school and transit buses with electric buses. That's good. Replace all shipping trucks, ensure the decarbonization of the transportation sector, build public transit that is affordable, accessible, fast, and resilient, build regional high-speed rail, retrofit dangerous fossil fuel infrastructure. He wants to also put money to research and development, which involves drastically decreasing this cost of energy storage, invest in decarbonizing the shipping and aviation industries as soon as possible, establish a nationwide materials recycling program, reassert U.S. leadership in research and engineering by marshaling resources across the federal government and institutions of higher education, including the National Academy of Engineering and National Science Foundation. The next part says he wants to use the power of international leadership. He wants to lead the world in fighting climate change by investing in reducing emissions throughout the world. Invest in the Green Climate Fund. Bring together the leaders of the major industrialized nations with the goal of using the trillions of dollars our nations spend on misguided wars and weapons of mass destruction to instead work together internationally to combat our climate crisis and take on the fossil fuel industry. He also wants to rejoin the Paris Climate Agreement and enforce aggressive climate reduction goals. That's something that President Trump obviously withdrew from like an idiot. Renegotiate disastrous trade deals to protect the environment. Now, as you know, some of you may know, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is the longer name of the TPP, as many of you guys may know, the TPP, it had a provision in that in that Trans-Pacific Partnership that said there's corporations. So big corporations that run like fossil fuel plants and, a lot of the places that basically let out emissions, CO2s and stuff, greenhouse gases into the climate. Those corporations can actually sue countries if those countries don't want those big corporations and those toxic CO2, emitting, companies and power plants and stuff to let out those emissions. They want to, if the countries want to stop them from doing that, the corporations can actually sue the country and allow them to exist, still exist in those countries. So, and then that Trans-Pacific Partnership, it's basically like a tribunal. It's like a tribunal court. And then that court is all stacked with the heads. So not so much the heads, the corporations, but the people that are, friendly to the corporate interests that, want those, essentially those gas companies and, those kind of companies that are letting out all those emissions to exist. So they're in favor of them existing, but those are the people that are running the tribunals that go and fuck up our climate, fuck up our entire country, our world, essentially, not even just the country, obviously, just the whole world with their, fucking horrible CO2s and, gases going into the air. That's what the TPP allows. So it allows the corporations to sue countries so that they can remain in those countries and continue doing what they're doing. It's ridiculous. So that's something Bernie has spoken out against. That's something that Bernie, he's going to put an end to here, as he says, as he explains here, which is really good because the TPP is it's ridiculous. It's horrible. And so, yeah, it's absurd that ever existed. And I'm glad that Bernie is going to focus on that as well. And he's also, called out NAFTA and normal trade relations with China and whatnot. So that's, he's always been anti-trade, and Trump claimed he was anti-trade, but he was an idiot, and he probably wanted to sell out more to the big corporations, basically, and because he wants to get back into, he wants to do like a NAFTA 2.0 and get back into the TPP and sneak in provisions in there from the TPP and NAFTA and stuff. So Trump is just, he's obviously gaslighting that issue. Bernie says he also wants to end overseas fossil fuel financing. Next one, he says he wants to invest in resilience and justice. He wants to create a climate justice resiliency fund, rebuild America's crumbling infrastructure, repair the nation's water systems, build resilient, affordable, publicly owned broadband infrastructure, which is basically internet access and communications, increase funding for roads, repair freight and passenger transportation networks. By the way, just so you guys know, our infrastructure currently gets a grade of D minus, so D or D minus, somewhere in that range. So I mean, Bernie is the only one that's happy to address this issue, while all the other politicians are just hedging and just pretending to claim they want to help that issue, but they really don't. The next one says build the $7.4 million affordable housing units to close the affordable housing gap across the country and guarantee safe, decent, accessible, affordable housing, repair and modernize public housing, retrofit our public infrastructure to withstand climate impacts, adapt to sea level rise, which is a ridiculous problem right now, obviously. Increase funding for firefighting to deal with more frequent and severe wildfires. I don't know if, obviously, I think everybody's heard about it by now, but the Amazon rainforest is just, it's engulfed in flames right now. So that's a terrible, terrible, development that is happening with our climate. Are all the different, I forgot where it was. It was a very cold weather region somewhere. Where was it? I think it was Greenland, or maybe Iceland or Greenland. It's like totally melting. It's melting to the point of like it's creating rivers where like all this water is like traveling through like all these different parts. And it's just like getting rid of all this obviously ice, and then it's all turning to water, melting into water essentially. It's amazing. Next part says protect community cohesion, which references after Hurricane Katrina, many of the residents, 24%, almost a fourth of the residents in New Orleans, many of them low-income families and people of color, evacuated the city and were never able to return. So they were basically left homeless on the streets after Hurricane Katrina. And I'm sure that's happened with a lot of other hurricanes too. Hurricane Sandy and Hurricane Katrina, obviously, and then many other ones. It's so hard to keep track of all these hurricanes that have destroyed our destroyed our country, different cities and states. Next one says increase investments in the hazard mitigation grant program. Apparently that's something that's part of FEMA, and that it helps mitigate damage from future disasters. So that's good. Conserving our public lands. He wants to invest in green infrastructure and public lands conservation by reinstating the Civilian Conservation Corps, fully fund the Land and Water Conservation Fund and our National Park Maintenance Backlog. Next part says he wants to end the greed of the fossil fuel industry and hold them accountable. Make the fossil fuel industry pay for their pollution. Prosecute and sue the fossil fuel industry for the damage it has caused, create a national climate risk report, implement sanctions for corporations that violate our domestic climate goals, end fossil fuel subsidies, keep fossil fuels on public lands and the ground, ban offshore drilling, end all new federal fossil fuel infrastructure permits, require fossil fuel corporations to repair leaking infrastructure, including natural gas and oil pipelines and drilling sites. Clean up old and abandoned fossil fuel infrastructure, ban fracking and mountaintop removal coal mining, ban imports and exports of fossil fuels, divest federal pensions from fossil fuels, pressure financial institutions, universities, insurance corporations, and large institutional investors still invested in or insuring fossil fuels to transition those investments to clean energy bonds through executive action. Place a fee on imported carbon pollution intensive goods, accurately estimate the climate impacts or benefits of all legislation proposed in Congress, focus the federal government's resources on transitioning to a 100% clean energy economy. And the last part here is rebuild our economy and ensure justice for frontline communities and a just transition for workers. For workers, he wants to ensure a just transition for workers. And I think that's kind of in relation to how, a lot of workers are, working it says working as coal miners and oil rig operators. He wants to transition them to go and work for the, clean energy corporations and industry and whatnot. So he wants to expand the jobs in those parts of the, those kind of jobs, essentially. He wants to require strong labor standards, provide employees with tax credits to incentivize hiring transitioning employees, invest in workers and deindustrialize community economic development, protecting the right of all workers to form a union without a threat or intimidation from management. When it comes to economic development, he wants to provide targeted regional economic development. He wants to invest, he wants to put funding, $5.9, almost $6 billion in funding distributed for Appalachian Regional Commission, Delta Regional Authority, Denali Commission, Northern Border Regional Commission, Southeast Crescent Regional Commission, Economic Development Assistance Programs. And then he also wants to put infrastructure investments for impacted communities. So he said, like the headline says, a just transition for frontline communities, ensure an inclusive, comprehensive process from start to finish, follow environmental justice principles, ensure the full and equal enforcement of all environmental, civil rights, and public health laws, and aggressive prosecution of violators. Let's see. Yeah, so, it's a very long list. It's much longer than I expected it to be. But, you guys basically get the idea. Bernie Sanders is making sure he wants to make sure that people know that he has a main priority. One of his main priorities, obviously, as I mentioned in the last segment, is criminal justice reform, but is also climate change and focusing on the a Green New Deal and, really revitalizing our entire system. That's, our entire environmental kind of apparatus, which is right now is just based on pretty much just not doing anything. Even if you talk to a lot of Democrats or hear from a lot of Democrats and ask them what they want to do, they give a lot of just very kind of surface level type ideas. They don't really want to do anything that specific and get into the details of it, because they know that if they do that too much, the Democratic Party is going to say, you can't do that. That's, you're going too far. It's going to piss off our donors. And obviously those are the only people that the Democratic Party really even cares about. So those are the people that they're going to try and please. So when it comes to majority of Democrats out there, let alone, the ones that are in Congress, let alone the members of Congress, members of the Senate. Obviously, Republicans aren't going to do anything. But when it comes to even Democrats these days, they don't want to do anything. They just say they want to. Just like a lot of the Republicans say that, I totally care about being pro-life, but then Republicans are in support of like wars and regime change wars and bombing 7 countries, 8 countries, whatever. They don't give a shit about that kind of stuff. So just like the Democrats don't give a shit about this, but they claim to. So it's just a lot of just talk, talk. Nobody really wants to live up to any kind of standard. They just want to, honestly, the only standard they do want to live up to is the ones that the donors set for them, not the ones that the American people set for them. So that's why Bernie Sanders, he's going up above and beyond everybody else, because he knows if you set high standards for yourself and for obviously the people that are elected you to become president, then you're going to feel the need to do as much as possible, instead of just being like, let me just do this little thing here, add little tweaks here and there. Okay, whatever. But I'm totally progressive, even though that's just because like these idiots have claimed themselves to be progressive for so long, and then they push forth ideas that are not progressive, but they just keep saying I'm progressive, or I'm a liberal, or whatever it is. In reality, they're just sellouts, and they just use the labels to make themselves seem progressive, and then the ideas they put out are bullshit. But they keep repeating being, what label they are, progressive or liberal, and then people believe that, and they actually think their ideas are liberal and progressive because they call themselves liberal and progressive, when in reality they're not. So, if you want an actual progressive, you want an actual leftist, you want somebody that's a, democratic socialist, you look to Bernie Sanders, and you look at his ideas, and you look at the stuff that he's putting forth, because those are the real things that people are actually asking for. Okay, so pertaining to Bernie Sanders' climate plan, there's obviously going to be a lot of haters out there. As I said, there might be some people who are going to be like, this isn't progressive enough, especially since he gave it the same name that AOC gave the plan, Green New Deal, and when in reality, it doesn't seem to be that much of a Green New Deal. But it's understandably going to be a lot of critics out there who are going to say, they're going to want more. In my opinion, his Green New Deal seems very extensive. I obviously just went through it for you guys, and it's pretty detailed, I would say. But then, amazingly, he's actually getting criticized by this. Well, it's not that surprising, but it's by this idiot that works for Mother Jones, which is supposedly a progressive magazine. Mother Jones was a big advocate for unions, and she, back in the day, let me read who she is real quick. Her name was Mary Harris Jones. Mother Jones was basically her kind of moniker, I guess. And she was an Irish-born American school teacher and dressmaker who became a prominent organized labor representative, community organizer, and activist. She helped coordinate major strikes and co-founded the Industrial Workers of the World. So this organization, or whatever, this publication decided to name itself Mother Jones. In reality, they are not progressive or in favor of unions or, far to the left at all, like the actual Mother Joneses. So this poor woman is probably, rolling over in her grave seeing her name being used for this ridiculous publication that's, basically, I don't know what to call it, toxic, anti-progressive, totally ridiculous, totally, absurd, filled with a bunch of absurd hacks, basically, who for some reason didn't hate Bernie Sanders, even though I guarantee the actual Mother Jones would actually probably be enamored with Bernie Sanders and his ideas. Anyway, but I digress from the actual Mother Jones. I want to get to this article here. So the author of this article, his name is Kevin Drum. He has been attacking Bernie Sanders for a long time. I think ever since 2016, maybe sooner, but certainly since 2016, 2017, roughly. And he has just been fucking just railing against Bernie Sanders for like the stupidest, obviously, unsurprisingly, stupidest reasons out there. And I think he's probably one of the only Mother Jones writers to be doing that. And the article that he recently he wrote here, which isn't too long, it's like a couple minutes long. Yeah, about 3 minutes long. It's so absurd. So he responds to Bernie Sanders' climate change plan. And he says, in the title, he says, Bernie Sanders gets a D- for his climate plan. So what does he base this on? So let's check it out. Let's give this asshole the benefit of the doubt and assume that his argument is legitimate. So check this out. So he says, Bernie Sanders released his climate change plan today, and Bernie being Bernie, it was naturally the biggest leftist, most socialist plan out there, and that was the good part. The bad part is that it's practically designed to fail. Oh no. So obviously it must be a horrible plan, right? So he's obviously going to get into how these ideas are just ridiculous and he disagrees with them, and it's just, it's just not a good idea. So like a lot of like conservatives and Republicans say, basically. You're going to be surprised to find out that's not the case. So he says, if you're going to propose a massive $16 trillion plan, the first thing you should do is get as many people on board as possible. Instead, Sanders practically revels in pissing off as many stakeholders as possible. He's going to tax the rich. He's going to hobble the fossil fuel industry. He's going to ban nuclear power. He's going to nationalize electric generation and turn it over to the federal government. What the fuck is wrong with that? Is all of a sudden that's a bad thing now? So is Bernie Sanders, what is he supposed to do? Is he supposed to, go out and cheerlead in favor of nuclear power and kiss the ass of the fossil fuel industry? Yeah, apparently you are. But those are the kind of things you would expect to hear from, corporate Democrats and obviously Republicans and, the likes of Donald Trump and all his cronies. This is a supposedly progressive, social, maybe even socialist, leftist publication named after somebody that was actually socialist and leftist. They're actually arguing that doing those things where you're calling out those, big capitalistic corporate, institutions is a bad thing. That's apparently a bad thing now. So let's continue here. It says, and then there are the absurd promises. He's going to create 20 million new union jobs. And then in parentheses, it says, no, he's not, unless he also creates 20 million new human beings. We've got 30 or 40 million people in this country. How do you have to create 20 million new human beings? Anyway, so he says he's going to eliminate fossil fuels by 2030 at the latest. And then in parentheses again, it says, I don't think even the most optimistic environmentalist thinks we can build out solar and wind that fast. Okay. And then he says electricity will be virtually free by 2035. And then he puts in parentheses, oh, please. Wow. Very, very pithy response there. Oh, please. So basically this article so far just consists of this asshole just whining about what we can't do. We can't do this and we can't do that. And this is impossible and that's impossible. And then next he says, and then there's this spending. It says $2 trillion to weatherize homes, another $2 trillion to allow people to trade in their old gas burners for electric vehicles, $500 billion to replace school buses, $1 trillion for public transit and high-speed rail. I'm open, and he says, I'm open to expert opinion on this, but everything I know about climate change tells me that this is an enormous amount to spend on things that will have only modest impacts. Are you telling me that getting rid of, actually fixing those things, weatherizing homes, replacing school buses with actual energy efficient school buses, getting rid of cars with electric vehicles, that's not a small thing. That's a big deal. Those are all things that contribute to the emitting of CO2s and fossil fuels and stuff into our atmosphere. So what are you talking about? And this guy's like, I'm open to expert opinion. And he says, but everything I know about climate change. Oh, clearly you don't know anything about climate change if you claim that these things are all small. And the next thing he says here, but at least Sanders will also dedicate huge amounts to R&D, which is research and development, right? He says right at the top that he'll make massive investments in new research. But down in the details, R&D appears to get $8 billion, only a little more than he'd spend on school buses. Well, hold on, but how much? Okay, how much do you really need to spend on research and development? It's not like the things that Bernie Sanders wants to do, that is the ideas that he's putting out there are like, I can't quite figure this out yet. It's very unknown and it's very, it's not a lot of people know about it. They're probably researching that shit right now. So how much more did they have to put into it? They're researching it now, or they've already researched it. So to claim the R&D is not enough because he's spending only a little more, he's spending on R&D than he would on school buses. So, the comparison is ridiculous. Just because you're not spending a ton of money on R&D doesn't mean he's not doing R&D, because the R&D has already been done, especially when it comes to research. People are researching this shit like crazy. And then development is just, developing the essentially the technology, which we already have. So I don't know what this guy's talking about. And besides, you can probably come up with like cost-efficient ways of developing this kind of technology. It's not like it's cost like millions, billions, trillions, quadrillions of dollars. No, but this guy obviously he's an expert, right? So he would know about how everything's, all the costs of everything apparently. And then he says, this is a wild mismatch. Sanders appears to be more interested in creating a huge federal jobs program than he is in seriously taking on climate change. So what is he supposed to do? He's supposed to create jobs. That's the whole point. What are you going to do? You're going to create... So what are you going to do? You're going to create... You're going to get rid of obviously all like the big, essentially obviously, like I said before, the gas companies and the ones that are emitting fossil fuels into the air and stuff, poisoning our waters and poisoning our air and stuff. You got to replace those with something. So you're going to create jobs for the people that are going to be working in the newer, factories and stuff. So you're going to create these new, environmental, basically factories or whatever you want to call them, environmental, basically institutions, and then you have to fund. You have to have workers there, and you have to fund it somehow, and then you have to you have to pay those people money. Apparently, this guy's idea is like, no, you shouldn't be worrying about the jobs that are going to be existing in those, in those places. So replacing the power plants and factories and all those things somehow, I guess those places are going to be operated by robots. I guess this guy, I guess, wants to, supporting automation or something. So, I mean, obviously, again, he shows that he has no idea what climate change is, and apparently he doesn't know anything about jobs that are in the climate change kind of, industry either. And the final paragraph here, he says, the Sanders plan looks to me like the worst kind of kitchen sink proposal, a quote-unquote plan that avoids making any hard choices by simply saying that we'll do everything. Call me cranky, but I'm tired of this stuff. It's a box-checking exercise designed to appeal to every possible lefty constituency rather than something that has even the remotest chance of building the public support needed to get it passed through Congress. I mean, I don't even know what to say to that. Yeah, I'm going to call you cranky because you're a cranky idiot and you don't know anything. You don't know anything about climate change. You don't know anything about pushing ideas that it's actually going to save our planet. You just want to have a reason to complain, basically. That's what it looks like. And then he writes a postscript. He says, it's probably worth noting that I haven't looked at the climate plans from other candidates. I don't think you've looked at Bernie's climate plan, but okay. And he says, so I'm not comparing Sanders to anyone else. For all I know, all the other plans are just as bad. Well, I'll tell you right now, the plans that any other... And like I said before, any other politician is pushing for is not going to be that great. I can assure you that it's not that good. But yeah, this guy's a moron, man. I don't even know what he's talking out of his fucking ass, making all this stuff up about how like, oh yeah, well, this is totally like a checkbox for leftists and stuff. Like, okay, so I mean, I don't get it. This is the thing. These people, they say these things, they fucking gaslight and give all these make all these complaints and stuff, and they don't do anything to actually address it, like to address the specific like he didn't even give any when he opposed all these ideas that Bernie's pushing. He didn't even give a reason. He just basically said, oh, we can't do this because we can't do that, and this is too expensive, and then you're giving a lot of promises that you can't keep, and then you just want to give a checklist to leftists. Okay, you might as well just be pushing for ideas that you might as well just be go and agree with the Republican Party, or just go join. Obviously he doesn't like anything that Bernie Sanders says, so he wants to go and agree with the shitty plans that Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren and all those people are pushing for, which is nothing. It's just basically stupid neoliberal half measure type stuff. So, and by the way, I don't know if you guys may have heard, I'm sure a good chunk of progressives definitely heard about it, but apparently, what's her name? Elizabeth Warren was giving, she gave like her own kind of climate change, not like necessarily like a whole, I'm not talking about like right now or anything, this is a while back, it was a couple months ago, but she was giving like this climate change statement or something. I think she mainly seemed to have, she kind of addressed it on Twitter, at least from what I know, and it was something about like how the problems, like, so all the problems that are occurring in so various countries and stuff. So apparently, like, you know, Middle East and stuff. So obviously there's a lot of like, you know, obviously the climate in like various Middle East countries is causing a lot of the people in those countries to migrate to other countries because it's so fucking hot. And, you know, you would think she would be addressing something like that, but no, she gets into how this is something that's impacting the way the Pentagon operates. And she even released like a whole like article. Team Warren, you know, released this article. I'll post it for you guys in the description box below. But it says it's titled "Our Military Can Help Lead the Fight in Combating Climate Change." Like, so all of a sudden now she wants to get the military-industrial complex involved in you know, helping, you know, avert climate change, or not avert, but kind of help prevent it, you know, climate change from getting worse. And I'm trying to find the tweet that she talked about. Oh, here it is. I think that's maybe it. So it says, climate change is real, it's worsening by the day, and it's undermining our military readiness. Our military readiness is in big trouble. I'm sure Kevin Drum would love this policy. It says, more and more accomplishing the mission depends on our ability to continue operations in the face of floods, drought, wildfires, desertification, and extreme cold. Senior military leaders have warned Congress of the national security challenge that climate change poses. The military is taking steps to become more energy efficient and resilient, but instead of meeting this threat head-on, Washington is ignoring it and making it worse. Today I am introducing my Defense Climate Resiliency and Readiness Act to harden the U.S. military against the threat posed by climate change and to leverage its huge energy footprint as part of our climate solution. The Pentagon is the single largest government consumer of energy, and it's dependent on fossil fuels. To improve military readiness and help us achieve a Green New Deal, the Pentagon should achieve net zero carbon emissions for all its non-combat bases and infrastructure by 2030. We do not have to choose between a green military and an effective one. My plan will improve our service members' readiness and safety and achieve cost savings for American taxpayers. Together we can fight climate change and win. I mean, this whole idea is basically from Elizabeth Warren. I almost said Hillary Clinton. Elizabeth Warren is basically to suck up to the military-industrial complex and then so-called fight climate change by making the military more fuel efficient. Now, you can make the case, yes, the military is a big, you know, emitter of fossil fuels, and, you know, that's fine. If you want to address that, that's fine. But putting a whole plan about it, I mean, Bernie, I don't know. Yeah, Bernie didn't seem to address. I don't know if he did. I didn't read the entire plan. It was very, very, very long. But in the beginning of it, I didn't see him say anything about, you know, the military being a big emitter of fossil fuels, which, whatever. I mean, I'm sure he knows that. But, I mean, that's not... Like, he doesn't want to suck up to the military-industrial complex, which is good. So, obviously, he wouldn't be doing something like that. But for Elizabeth Warren to be doing that, that's just clearly, to me, it's just a sign of her wanting to to suck up to the military-industrial complex and do the things that, you know, is going to make, you know, all the establishment Democrats be like, wow, that's a great idea. That's awesome. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And, you know, a lot of progressives, when this came out, they, you know, called her out and said it's fucking ridiculous, because it is. And yeah, I mean, again, these are the kind of ideas that somebody like Kevin Drum, the Mother Jones, you know, author and shit, he would love these kind of things, because this is something that, it benefits the Democratic establishment, and these people are in love with the Democratic establishment. They love what they are doing, and they love all the things that they're putting out there, because those are the things that help maintain the status quo. But just doing like I said before, doing little tweaks to things, just little tweaks here and there, just tiny little tweaks, nothing too ambitious or too far or whatever they call it, or too radical, whatever the hell they want to call it. So, I mean, look, at the end of the day, Bernie Sanders, again, he has the most detailed and best plan out there for climate change, just like he does for criminal justice reform, because he goes into the details. He puts all these plans out. All the other people don't really, whatever. They might have good plans, laid out on their websites too. I'm sure everybody can, write out a plan and put it there. But do they talk about it a lot? Do they talk about it in detail? Do they bring it up constantly? And I'm going to post. I was going to post a press conference. I forgot to mention the last segment, but I'm going to post the press conference that Bernie did. Discussing his Green New Deal idea. So he gets into detail about these things a lot. It's not something that he just puts into his website. Makes T-shirts out of, or says he has a plan for that, as Elizabeth Warren does, and just boasts about doing something when he doesn't really do it. And he goes into detail, and he makes sure to talk about it and address it as much as possible, because he knows it's a big deal. And he knows just talk is just talk. You can't just talk about something. You can't just put it in your website. You have to get into, you got to bring it up as much as possible. You have to get into the specificities of it and discuss it as much as possible, because these are big things that are, it's a big deal, and Democrats are just not bringing it up. And guys like this prick, Kevin Trump, they love it when they don't get into the details, because they just want to keep everything at a surface level. They don't want to get into details too much, because if you make too many promises, then you're going to get scoffed at by this people like this, who are, apparently they're not in favor of doing anything, and they just say, no, we can't do this, and no, we can't do that, and everything that this is, everything that Bernie Sanders wants to do is just too much, and oh please, and I don't even think that's possible. It's like, okay, who can really get behind any kind of get behind any kind of article, or support any, or want to read an article, or get passionate about an article that's basically saying that you can't do things, you can't do this and you can't do that. Talk about negativity, talk about not being passionate. Clearly this guy isn't, and he, like I said before, he doesn't know shit about climate change either. So, some of you, obviously, you keep up with the endorsements that Bernie Sanders gets, people that, obviously back him and everything, and really, support what he pushes for and stuff. You obviously know about Cardi B, who's rapper, entertainer, or whatever she is, but she's she's a hip-hop rap artist, and she is a big backer of Bernie Sanders. She has made that very, very public. She's talked about, vote for Daddy Bernie, bitch, and all that stuff. And she's, even when people have asked her, she's gotten into detail about why she supports him. She's also from, I believe she's from Brooklyn, New York. I know she's from New York. I think she's from Brooklyn, New York, just like Bernie Sanders is. So they kind of have that connection going as well. Let's see here. Well, she was born in Manhattan, and then she was raised in the Bronx, so not Brooklyn. Bernie Sanders is from Brooklyn. And so, yeah, she's been very, very open about her support for Bernie Sanders, and it's great to see, because it seems to be a really good way for Bernie to reach the millennial audience and stuff. And I can't think of any other people. How old is she? She's really young. She's only 26, so she's definitely in that millennial, maybe even younger than millennials, but kind of in that millennial, range of age range and everything. So I'm gonna play you guys this clip of Cardi B and Bernie Sanders having a conversation. It's a breakdown from this. It's this outlet called Now News. You guys may have heard of it. Now News. This is it called? I think. Let me see here. It's called Now This. Yeah. Now News is like another version of it, but this is just Now This. So they had an extensive conversation. I think they're extensive. Their long version of the conversation, I think, is like 13 or 14 minutes long. Bernie posted it on his page, on his main Bernie Sanders page. But this is just a breakdown of it. I can't. If you want to check out the whole thing, I can post it for you guys in the description box below. But let's just listen to this first, and then we'll discuss it on the other side.
Do you think it's going to be possible to eliminate student debt?
We are going to cancel all student debt in America.
I'm trying to advocate the youth in my community because I feel like there's a serious problem right now in America. Like, what are we going to do about wages in America?
Good.
Like, for example, like me as a New Yorker, not now, but, when I was not famous, I just felt like no matter how many jobs I get, I wasn't able to make ends meet. Like, I wasn't able to pay my rent, get transportation, and eat.
That is an excellent and important question, because right now we have tens of millions of people who are earning what I consider to be starvation wages. Can you imagine somebody today earning $9 an hour?
It don't make no sense.
No, it doesn't. So you can get a job, but maybe you're going to have to work with 2 or 3 jobs.
Exactly.
Legislation that I've introduced, which was passed in the House recently, U.S. House, would raise that minimum wage to $15 an hour. And what we also have to do is make it easier for workers to join unions so they can sit down and engage in collective bargaining and earn a decent living.
And we constantly see on social media police brutality against black men and against minorities. What are we going to do to change that? Because that is discouraging our people. It's discouraging us to fight. It makes us feel like we're worthless. We constantly see a man getting killed every day, and it seems like nobody cares, nobody's sympathizing, nobody's talking about it. Because let me tell you something. There was this one time that I started to feel like I hate the police. They pigs. But there's a lot of cops that go in their jobs and they want to protect their people.
That's right. So we need police departments that look like the communities that they serve. We get rid of a lot of this militarization of the police department, which is a form of intimidating people in the community.
Do you think it's going to be possible to eliminate student debt? Because so many people are suffering these things, and I feel like it discouraged the youth to go to school.
Cardi, you are 100% right. Number one, if you can get into college, if you have the ability, you should be able to get a college education regardless of your income, and we're going to make public colleges and universities tuition free. Second thing, to answer your question, we are going to cancel all student debt in America. Now, how can we do that? We're going to do all of that by putting a very modest tax on Wall Street speculation.
I hope your questions have been answered, and let's just get more educated. Please, let's put our focus on these terms elections, because I don't think people understand how serious it is.
Young people have got to get involved in the political process. Register to vote. It is not hard. It takes you 5 minutes. Register to vote. Trump does not want people of color to be participating in the political process. Participate in the political process. And then think about who the candidate is that is speaking the issues that are important to you, and then vote.
Let's feel the burn.
Yeah, so clearly Cardi B is a big fan of Bernie Sanders. She's asking him a lot of good questions, a lot of stuff that honestly a lot of people that are millennials may not. I'm a millennial too, by the way, but I mean, not trying to millennial bash or anything, but I mean, a lot of millennials may not know about these issues, right? So I mean, they might not be educated on these things, and honestly, they're probably stuck watching a bunch of stupid, MSNBC, CNN clips and stuff. Hopefully, a lot of those people are watching new media like this show and stuff that, stuff that's a lot more like gets into details more. It doesn't focus on, again, like I said before, the surface level issues. It gets in deep dives into real issues, and that's what this show is meant to do. That's what shows like, Secular Talk and Tim Black, Jimmy Dore, they get really into the meat of the stuff that's going on in this country, whereas everybody else is just talking about stupid like water cooler conversations that honestly they're not really that important. They're just they get into all the kind of the superficial topics, nothing that's really stuff that people truly should care about. So here she's talking about how people should people be able to get a $15 minimum wage. They're not getting paid enough when they're working. I can't pay my rent. I can't I can't afford to, let's say, buy food for my kids, stuff like that. Rent, live in a decent neighborhood because I'm not getting paid enough. Stuff like what else she mentioned, like mass incarceration, her feelings on crimes. I'm sorry, on cops and everything, and how they kind of respond to the crimes, so-called, I guess, many times crimes that are committed, shooting black men for no reason and stuff. So he says he wants to reform the police department. He obviously mentioned this in his, as I covered in my segment. I mentioned that in the his criminal justice platform and everything. So yeah, I mean, she's definitely going out of her way to make sure that the people that follow her, so all of her, whether they like her music or they just like her as a person, whatever, she wants to make sure that those people know, they know that these issues are important, that Bernie Sanders is addressing them. Other candidates are not addressing them, and in fact, it's so funny because I saw on Twitter, and a bunch of people responded to this person saying it was this African American lady. I don't remember what she was. I think she was maybe Democratic something, head of some Democratic party somewhere in some state or something, and she was saying like, Cardi B, why don't you, and she tagged her too. She tagged her, added her on Twitter and says, why don't you talk to all the other candidates? Basically, like taking a swipe at Bernie, and this is somebody that's gone after Bernie Sanders before too. So obviously they're not a fan of Bernie, but whatever. But they're saying like, oh yeah, Cardi B, go and talk to other candidates, see what they have to say. So it's like you can tell this person is super fucking bitter, super salty about Bernie having the essentially the endorsement of Cardi B. Because there was also like a video that was released a while back where it showed Kamala Harris. She was like dancing to the music of Cardi B. Let me tell you one thing right now. Kamala Harris is not listening to Cardi B's music. Kamala Harris has zero. She relates exactly zero amount to anything that Cardi B is doing in her music, whether she's shaking her ass or she's, twerking all over the place and, showing cleavage and, half naked, which is perfectly fine. But Kamala Harris acting like she's like some like fan of Cardi B, and she's even claimed that she's a supporter of Tupac and stuff, Tupac Shakur, of his music or whatever, and she's smoked weed and stuff. Come on, get the fuck out of here. So yeah, I mean, my point is that people want to pretend like, and people made a really big deal about, Kamala Harris dancing to Cardi B's music and shit. So my point is that they're trying to pretend as if, like all these other candidates are like super hip and like with it, and they're doing the Macarena and doing all the hip shit that all the kids are doing, right? They're pretending like all those other politicians are also on on the same level as Cardi B as far as like liking her and knowing who she is and loving her music and stuff. I mean, I don't know if Bernie Sanders is a fan of Cardi B's music. I'd be surprised if he's listening to Cardi B, but whether or not he is irrelevant, because the whole point here is politics. It's not posturing about like, oh, I totally love this person's music, I'm friends with them. No, who knows? I mean, before this or before she even endorsed him, she probably never even met Bernie Sanders, but she liked his platform. She still likes his platform, obviously. She, supports what he's pushing for and stuff, and it has nothing to do with whether you listen to her music or don't, or like her shaking her ass in her videos or not. It doesn't really matter. This is somebody that is connecting with a politician on a human level, having a conversation with them, discussing, various issues. I mean, because like I said, the full-length segment, I think it's 13 or 14 minutes long. You guys should check that out. But I mean, this is a perfect example of somebody like Cardi B trying to not only get herself involved, but people that listen to her music or like her or whatever, getting involved as well and knowing who Bernie Sanders is. She doesn't have to do this. This is something that she decided to do out of the goodness of her heart and the goodness of her, kind of her interest in wanting to better the country. And she's going out there and she's promoting what, obviously progressives consider to be the best candidate out there among all these 20 other fucking chicken heads, essentially, who just spout, bullshit neoliberal talking points. And Bernie Sanders is not doing that. Bernie Sanders is going into the details of everything, and that's something that Cardi B likes. And, I've seen a couple of right-wing outlets and stuff. I think one of them was Daily Caller or something, saying, oh, the very cringeworthy, very cringy interview that Cardi B did with Bernie Sanders. And, like, they're obviously going to hate it. They can't stand Cardi B. They can't. I mean, I'm not a fan of Cardi B's music, so I'm not, like, I don't have any, I don't have any kind of, like, non-political interest in her. My interest in her is honestly very political, because she is a politically active person. I don't care what her music is. I don't care whether she, what she's doing in her music. I don't listen to her music. That's just not my it's just not my cup of tea. But I'm sure her music is okay. I've seen a couple of videos or something, but have I listened to like an entire Cardi B song? No, not really. And, but again, that doesn't matter. That's irrelevant. The whole point is that Cardi B is trying to get millennials involved. She's trying to introduce them to, Bernie Sanders, trying to get them obviously conscious of serious issues like, a higher minimum wage and criminal justice and debt-free college. I'm sure they talking about climate change and stuff like that. So the people that want to like call Cardi B an idiot and stuff, like the right wingers, I'm sure a lot of them do. They're like, oh, this fucking whatever black chick over here. Actually, I think it's Puerto Rican. Actually. Let me just double check that real quick. I'm sorry, I'm way off on that one. She's actually of Dominican and Trinidadian and Spanish descent. Her mother was Trinidadian and Spanish, and her father was Dominican. I actually thought she was half black, and then half like Hispanic. So she's half Hispanic, half, I don't know, half Hispanic, and then half, actually 3/4 Hispanic, because she's Spanish and Dominican, and then a quarter Trinidadian. So that's very interesting. But yeah, I mean, but either way, she's a woman, she's a woman of color. Everybody claims that Bernie Sanders doesn't have support from women of color, which is total bullshit. They make that shit up. That's something that's been coupled with the ridiculous Bernie bro myth. And, it's great to see that, Cardi B is trying to dispel that ridiculous myth and trying to put forth her support for him. And that's great to see. And I'm very happy to see that she is willing to take her time to do something like this with Bernie Sanders. And I can tell Bernie Sanders appreciates it as well, and he likes having conversations with, with millennials, whether it's Cardi B, whether it's a celebrity, whether it's a regular person on the street, whatever it is. So he's, always happy and willing to do those kind of things, because he knows that the millennials and young people like myself, and I'm sure like a lot of you guys that are watching right now, you're impacted by the things that Bernie Sanders is going to push. And she realizes that, and she sees that he's really, something he's focusing on. He's trying to reach out to millennials, obviously, because he knows that they're the future. And she's obviously a millennial too, and she wants to make sure that he's recognized. And that's great to see. And I hope she continues to go out there for Bernie. I hope she does rallies with him too. That would be really good, especially if he wins it would be nice in the primary too, but especially if he goes into the general, that would be great to have her doing rallies with him and everything. So we'll see. Hopefully it's going to be the beginning of a great partnership and a relationship with Bernie and Cardi. Recently, the Democratic National Committee held a hearing to decide whether or not they should have a debate, so like a specific Democratic debate that focuses on climate change. And obviously, as many people know, the Democratic Committee and party in general is extremely corrupt and extremely beholden to corporate interests. So obviously this is not in their best interest to do these kind of things. And they actually ended up voting it down. When they had this vote, they actually voted down the idea of doing a climate change debate. And so let me read this article for you guys here, and it kind of gets into the details of exactly what happened and everything, and we will discuss it as we read along. Let's see. So the title of the article is Democratic National Committee Votes Down Climate Debate, Activists Vow to Fight On. It says the vote came a day after the 2020 climate candidate Jay Inslee, who had been pushing for the debate, dropped out of the race. Yeah, Jay Inslee was because he's not obviously dropped out, so he's not around anymore in the primary. But he was a very good candidate to have around because he was pushing obviously great policies that the Democratic Party should focus on much more. So let's check out the article here. Okay, so the body of the article starts off by saying a panel of the Democratic National Committee on Thursday rejected a proposal, and by the way, this is from HuffPost.com, and it said they rejected a proposal to host a single-issue debate on the climate crisis. At a party conference Thursday in San Francisco, California, the DNC's Resolutions Committee voted 17-8, wow, against a resolution that has become a cause celebre. I'm not sure exactly how to say that word, celebre for activists and for more than a dozen presidential contenders who felt the traditional debate format failed to adequately address the looming threat of catastrophe. The issue could resurface during the full committee's general session on Saturday. It was a predictable outcome. Top brass at the DNC opposed the climate debate from the get-go, fearing it could sow discord in the base and hamper the eventual nominee in the general election. I wouldn't be surprised if they're claiming that Russian bots are pushing for that stuff, so-called Russian bots. They probably will at some point. I wouldn't be surprised. It says CNN and MSNBC announced plans last month to host forums on climate change in September. DNC Chair Tom Perez affirmed the forums in a resolution introduced earlier this month, which some activists saw as setting the stage for voting down the climate debate. Simone Sanders, a senior advisor of presidential candidate Joe Biden, was among those who urged the DNC on Thursday to vote down a climate debate, saying it would, quote, it would be, quote, a dangerous territory in the middle of a Democratic primary process. So before I continue, I just wanted to play you guys the clip. She has a clip where she comments on why they shouldn't on why they shouldn't, they shouldn't have the debate, essentially. This was during the whatever conference, or during the thing, the debate they were having. So it's about a minute and a half video. So check this out, and then we'll discuss it, or we'll probably continue the article and then discuss all the stuff at the end.
There were a number of forums hosted. Planned Parenthood hosted a forum where 20 candidates showed up. There was a forum specifically about Black women. A number of candidates showed up. There is a forum that Latino Victory Fund is hosting in the coming weeks and months, I believe, where a number of candidates are slated to show up with a slant on Puerto Rico. We are fundamentally, this resolution right now would fundamentally change the game in terms of what has previously been communicated to not only campaigns, but networks, but other, as I like to call them, factions of the Democratic Party. And I fundamentally believe that climate change is an existential threat. Just as much of a threat, if not more of a threat, than Donald Trump. But I do think we have to think about the other folks that communicated they wanted a debate, that were told a debate is 2 or more people, and so you may not have a debate, but you can in fact have a forum. And we support forums, but I think this is dangerous territory in the middle of a Democratic primary process. And if we do, I absolutely support Christine's point about perhaps we should chop up our platform. Our debate should be theme focused. But frankly, that is a conversation we should have had last summer. That's not a feasible conversation to have this summer, as we are nearly 1/3 of the way through a Democratic primary process.
So that's just a part of her speech. I'm guessing it's at least another 2 or 3 minutes longer, because I believe each speaker that speaks at these committee forums and stuff, they get a kind of like an allotted amount of time, maybe 4 or 5 minutes or something to speak. And but she's basically, her argument basically boils down to, Simone Sanders, by the way, is a senior advisor to Joe Biden. She was an advisor to Bernie Sanders in 2016, by the way, which is interesting. A lot of people believe that she was placed in there as a mole, so as to like get information from Bernie and about Bernie, and then go to another campaign in 2020 or something, or another campaign, and just use it against him, essentially. Use information against him. But her argument is that, well, if we're going to have a specific forum or debate regarding climate change, we should have a specific forum or debate regarding all other issues too. So like Black issues, so like, criminal justice issues, women's issues and stuff. So it's a clever cop-out. I think a lot of people are probably going to fall for that and be like, yeah, no, totally. I totally agree with that because she's, I guess in some people's minds, she's probably making sense, because she's basically saying that if we're going to address this issue, then we should do it with everything else. But that's just a way for her to avoid her candidate, so Joe Biden, from her candidate to be able to have to talk about climate change, because his climate change plan sucks. And like I said, Bernie Sanders has the best plan. Everybody else's plan is way below and horrible, way below his and just horrible and just not that good. And she knows that his plan is not that good, or she just knows that if he's forced to speak on it more, that it's going to sow division in the party. So she's pushing this for the same kind of shit the rest of the DNC, or the kind of the party higher ups are pushing for, because she's not a party higher up, obviously, but she's obviously a member of the party. She must have some sort of board committee, kind of role or something. So but she just wants to avoid Biden from talking about that kind of stuff, because she knows that if he talks about it, it's not going to help his poll numbers, because nobody is going to like his plan, and the less he talks, the better, which is not that surprising, because they've been trying to do that with Biden for a while now. They don't want him talking very much. They don't want him making a lot of appearances and shit. So let's see here. So after the article addresses Simone Sanders' statement on the issue, it says, the article for Huffington Post says, that contrasts with what Biden had earlier said during a campaign stop in Iowa this summer. The former vice president had endorsed having a climate debate, telling Greenpeace, "I'm all in." The influential youth-led climate group Sunrise Movement, a driving force behind the climate debate push, filled the room where the vote took place with as many as 100 activists on Thursday. "We deserve a chance at a livable future," said one Sunrise activist who shouted after the vote. "We deserve a climate debate." The nonprofit vowed to hold protests over the next day, intended to shame the DNC for voting down the measure. At the same time, it applauded the committee's vote to advance a resolution reversing a ban on 2020 candidates participating alongside one another at climate forums not sanctioned by the DNC. By the way, the Sunrise Movement is a group that obviously they support more action taken on climate change, but they're also a group that has gone to many politicians' offices and protested outside of their offices. In fact, Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez protested with them right after the day or two after she got elected by, in her election, beating Joe Crowley. She went and protested outside Nancy Pelosi's office with the Sunrise Movement and a bunch of, I think, other protesters as well, but mainly the Sunrise Movement. And the Sunrise Movement has also gone to the offices of Dianne Feinstein and I think one other one too. And they've also obviously met with Bernie Sanders because he's a big climate change, climate change advocate or, doing something about climate change. So they're definitely a big supporter of his, but they're trying to get everybody else that they feel that they can get on board to, get on board with the idea. And they've been attacked for that because they've said, the people that are criticizing are like, well, why don't you go after Republicans more? And they're like, yeah, but the Republicans already don't support climate change compared to somebody like Dianne Feinstein or Nancy Pelosi, who's doing very little to nothing on the issue and just, kind of grandstands and pretends to address it and doesn't really address it. It's just a lot of talk, basically. So the next part here says this partial victory shows the strength of the grassroots movement and the power of young people. So I guess I'm assuming they are referring to the forums that are going to be taking place. It says the Sunrise Movement applauded the committee's vote to advance a resolution reversing a ban on 2020 candidates participating alongside one another at climate forums, not sanctioned by the DNC. So that was the last paragraph there. It says this partial victory shows the strength of the grassroots movement and the power of young people. Sunrise Movement spokesman Sophie Karasik said in a statement, "In the coming days and months, we'll keep fighting to make sure the DNC and Tom Perez treat the climate crisis like the emergency that it is and give it the airtime and attention that it deserves." Yeah, so the article goes on along here. It just talks about Jay Inslee a little bit and mentions Nancy Pelosi. It actually mentions. It says how the youth activists from the Sunrise Movement went to Nancy Pelosi's office and protested. That was the one that AOC went to as well. And then, it mentions Inslee a little bit more. It mentions Tom Perez, who's the head of the DNC. So if you guys want to check out that article, I'll put it in the description box. But yeah, man, I mean, it's just, I don't agree with the whole concession that because, the Sunrise Movement spokesperson saying that it's like a concession that they're allowing, the committee's vote to advance a resolution reversing a ban on 2020 candidates participating. But the fact that they don't want to have a whole debate about climate change is amazing. The DNC doesn't want to do anything. Again, they don't want to do anything that gets in the way of, pissing off their donors and pissing off the people that are bankrolling their causes. And they fear that if that happens, then it could end up putting into question the amount of money they get from donors. So they want to prevent that, and they don't want that to happen. And if they have to go out there and make these asinine arguments like Simone Sanders does and say if you're going to have a debate on this, then you got to have a debate on that, and you got to have a debate on everything else, and blah. Okay, I guess you can make that argument in some regard and, get away with it. But at the same time, it's like at least at least try and seem like at least your candidate is serious about it, you know? Like, look at Bernie Sanders. He puts out a whole fucking detailed, long-ass plan about climate change, which I couldn't even get through the entire thing on the show because it's so freaking long. But that's good. And this is something he talks about all the time. And, you know, what is Biden? Is Biden doing anything like that? No, he's not. He's talking about everything in vagaries and surface level shit and just like getting into like very like platitude type conversations and speeches and descriptions of his plan or whatever plan he has or doesn't have. Whatever it is, he's not getting into detail about it though. He's trying his best to just kind of brush over it, not address it too much because he knows that if he does, then he's going to piss off the donors, the people that are doing fundraisers for him and shit. As with every centrist Democrat, every establishment Democrat, Joe Biden knows where his bread is buttered. He knows that he has to adhere to the demands of people that are going to be filling his coffers and giving him funding to keep his campaign from, obviously going under, which I think a lot of people have made the argument that it already is going under just from his gaffes alone, because he's had so many freaking gaffes and just, even his own wife saying stupid things. And it's, he knows that he can't go into detail on that stuff because he's not gonna have a very good, explanation for why we should address climate change. Everything is going to just be like very vague type, platitude type, cliche shit. And if not that, he just knows that, obviously if he gets too progressive, he's going to piss off the donors. So all that vague shit is because of the donors that make him do those kind of things. So the donors tell him to address the issues like that. So, I mean, they don't want him to get into any kind of detail because then they can't fund him, and he's already losing a lot of the people that are bankrolling him as it is. So he's probably paranoid as it is, at this moment, and he doesn't want that to get any worse than it already is getting. So, as usual, Joe Biden, the DNC, the establishment, the corporate establishment, the centrists, they're all getting together to make sure to stop having conversations, detailed conversations about issues that are affecting us now, that are going to affect us even more. And I mean, like I said, I covered Bernie Sanders' plan. His plan is super specific, getting into the meat of what we need to do on climate change, and he is focused on making that work as soon as possible. And he knows if he doesn't, it's going to get even worse, and we might not even have a world to live on anymore. Our atmosphere is going to burn up to the point that we're not going to be able to exist much longer. So luckily, Bernie is addressing these things. Joe Biden is not. His advisors don't give a shit. His donors don't give a shit. Bernie Sanders is honestly the only one, and Jay Inslee, to his credit. Jay Inslee was, when he, before he dropped out, he was addressing it big time. And that's, I'm very happy to see Inslee do that. He was, I believe, governor of Washington State up north. And I've always known him to be somebody that's focusing on climate change very, very extensively. And I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if Bernie Sanders put Jay Inslee on potentially maybe his cabinet, or, spoke to him and kind of, got endorsed by him. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm talking about before the general, obviously, because I think it's obvious most Democrats are going to be endorsing, whoever the nominee is. Hopefully it's Bernie. So, but yeah, Bernie definitely has the best plan. Biden doesn't obviously have the best plan. His spokespeople are fucking idiots, and they don't know what they're doing. And the Democratic Party and the Democratic National Party is clearly in on that scam of lying to the rest of us and pretending they're going to address something when they're clearly not. In an unsurprising development, Kamala Harris again has flip-flopped on the issue of Medicare for all. I feel like I'm saying this like a million times. She's flip-flopped on it so many times. She's flip-flopped on the issue of specifically of whether to ban private insurance and all that stuff. And I mean, she's just gone all over the place when it comes to this this issue, and I just can't stand it. It's getting really cringeworthy at this point because she can't maintain any talking points, and she just jumps all over the place. She, doesn't really seem to honestly care that she, if she's talking to a certain group of people or a certain audience or something, she doesn't seem to care that, she's sounding completely different than she did the last time she spoke to some sort of, constituency, whatever it is, whether it's a specific state or whether it's donors or a fundraiser or whatever. But anyway, so splinternews.com, which is a pretty decent publication, they covered how she basically, changed her mind again on Medicare for all. And the title of this article from Splinter News is Kamala Harris shows us how the system works. And the article is by Jack Mirkinson. And the body of the article starts off by saying, Kamala Harris was in the Hamptons this past weekend raising money from rich people. There, she told people that she was not cool with Bernie Sanders' Medicare for all plan. Technically, according to Bloomberg, what Harris said was, I have not been comfortable with Bernie's plan. She also stressed that her own healthcare plan would leave room for private insurance. Yeah, we know. We're aware of that. And then she says, and then the article says, this is all routine enough. People can have their disagreements all they want about healthcare, but there's one odd thing about Harris's sudden vocal discomfort around the Sanders plan. She signed on to it in the Senate just a couple of months ago. Harris was one of a number of co-sponsors of the Medicare for All Act of 2019 in April, well into her presidential run. Unless do you think that Harris was just sort of standing in the back and didn't want to take any credit? CNN's Andrew Kaczynski pointed out that her office issued a press release placing her at the center of the whole thing. The release literally says Harris colleagues introduce Medicare for all. It's actually the second time Harris has backed Sanders on the issue. She also signed on to the 2017 version of the bill too. The full transcript of Harris's remarks shows her essentially saying that she signed on to a bunch of different things in the Senate and she supports them all. Of course she does. But also, she doesn't support them all. And people aren't into the Sanders plan, and she decided that she doesn't actually like it. Wow. The relevant bit somewhat edited down by me. So this is quoting her and what she said here. She says, I think almost every member of the United States Senate who's running for president and many others have signed on to a variety of plans in the Senate, and all of them are good ideas, which is why I support them. But as you may have noticed over the course of many months, I have not been comfortable with Bernie's plan. And I'll tell you why. And again, it comes back to listening. I've been listening to people, yeah, I'm sure you have, your donors. And people don't want to your point, I don't know who she's referring to your point. They don't want to not have a private option. I went back to my team and said we need a better plan. And then the article, the author, Jack Mirkinson, continues on with the last paragraph here. He says, what a great insight into how the process works. If you're a senator, you get to co-sponsor lots of legislation, and you even get to issue press releases about how good it is and what a crucial role you played in its development. And then just a few months later, you can say, actually, never mind. If I was a more cynical person, I'd say Harris never believed in the plan in the first place, but I would never accuse a politician of acting disingenuously. I mean, that's so true. Kamala Harris is somebody that you can't expect her to be truly consistent, truly authentic, truly just, saying as she does and doing as she says. She doesn't walk the walk. She doesn't talk the talk. Everything that she puts out there, you have to take it with the finest grain of salt. You cannot rely on her to stick to anything. Like her ideas and the statements that mainly the statements that she puts out and promises that she makes. It's like throwing Jello against a wall. It's not going to stick. It's going to keep rolling off that wall. It's going to keep, it's going to keep, it's just going to keep, letting you down. It's not going to be something that you can truly rely upon, because at the end of the day, she is in it for herself. She is in it for the title of, I'm president. I'm the first female president. I'm the first woman of color president. I'm the first Jamaican descent president. However you want to put it. This is what she wants to do. This is how she sees herself. She doesn't want to go in there and change the system, because she knows that if she talks to her donors, she talks to, her advisors, or obviously she's got advisors that used to work for Hillary Clinton. I mean, Elizabeth Warren has the same exact thing, so it's not that big of a, mystery that these people want to get advice from the same people that they spearheaded the campaign that lost to Donald Trump. So these people are working for a campaign that was a total failure and lost to a reality TV show host, and they keep pushing for the same exact things that Hillary Clinton was, or at least the same strategies that Hillary Clinton was, and they think that's totally okay. It's like, yeah, that's fine. Who cares? You got to do what you got to do. You got to, you got to push for things that the specific people that are working for the Democratic Party apparatus. So because these are all people they're in the same circles, they're all running in the same circles as each other. They're all doing, they're part of the same cocktail parties. They're going to the same, events as each other, going to the same not hearings, but I mean like, events and stuff, and like getting together and, talking about whatever's going on in Washington, D.C. and, who's selling out to the next donor, to the latest donor, and to the latest, lobbyist or whatever and stuff, all that shit. So they are roaming in the same circles, and they know this, and they know they can't get out of that, to use a phrase from Meet the Parents, which is a great movie with Robert De Niro and Ben Stiller. You can't get out of that circle of trust. That circle of trust is very, very important for these establishment types. They can't get out of that, because if they get out of that, you're not going to get back in. Once you're out, you're out. And that's what Robert De Niro said in that famous, what I consider at least famous scene, where he reminded Greg, which is Ben Stiller in Meet the Parents. He reminded him, once you're out of that circle, you're out, and there's no way of getting back in. Now, I don't necessarily know if that's exactly the case when it comes to politics, but it seems like if you are going out there and being, let's say, anti whatever, let's say you're in favor of like Bernie, like you're in favor of Medicare for all, and you're in favor of Green New Deal and raising the minimum wage, stuff like ending the wars and stuff, the stuff that the establishment hates. Like, would it be possible that you could get back into that little circle if you start saying different things? It depends. I don't think Bernie Sanders will ever get into that circle if he I know he's not going to, but I'm saying, like, if, like, say anybody like Bernie Sanders, was saying the things that he's saying and then wanted to get back into that circle, that establishment circle of trust, I don't know. It's possible they would be able to get back in, that particular person, whether it's Bernie or whoever. Again, I don't think Bernie would do that, but I'm saying just as as an example. But at the same time, they would definitely be worried. They'd be looking at you from like the corner of their eye, worrying like, oh shit, is this person going to switch when we least expect it? And I mean, to their credit, can you blame them for being worried about that? I don't know. I mean, my feeling is that these people are always keeping a close eye on what these politicians say, And just like we are, people on social media, I know myself, progressives out there, we're always talking about how, look at what this anchor on MSNBC said, or this CNN person said, or this politician said, or whoever said, Bernie said this, or, Elizabeth Warren said that. So we're keeping track of this stuff. But I guarantee you, just as closely, these donors, these establishment types, the lobbyists, all these people are looking closely at these people, at these politicians, and seeing what they say, and making sure that they're maintaining the status quo, or whatever, maintaining whatever kind of, ideas and policies that they want, and they're making sure that they don't get off track. They got to stay on that. They got to stay on that lane. They can't get off that lane. They got to stay on the lane that they, are expected to be in, and it's guaranteed that. That's something that the lobbyists are looking out for. Like I said, just like we're looking out for our politicians, on people on mainstream media, hosts and whatnot. We're keeping a close eye on them too. So it's just a matter of knowing that people are going to continue doing what they say they're going to do, and sticking to it. And we expect that, and then also the donors and lobbyists expect that. We can't go out there and think, we can't think like too naively and be like, oh no, they aren't, watching them just like we're watching them as well. Everybody is able to, with technology these days, TV, cell phones and stuff, everybody's keeping track of everything. Everybody's watching everything. Everybody's making sure nobody, gets off that, gets off that thing, off that kind of, that whole kind of that specific pedestal, right? Off that pedestal of, making sure they're, you're in the establishment, you're on the establishment pedestal, you don't want to get knocked off that establishment pedestal, So I'm throwing out a bunch of analogies here, whether you're using circle of trust or pedestal, whatever. But, but also, so I want to mention, also in conjunction with the kind of, again, flip-flopping of Elizabeth Warren, the Elizabeth Warren camp has been going after Bernie Sanders a lot. They've been attacking, a lot of his progressive policies. Kamala's not going after Bernie Sanders as much. This is the first time I've seen her even address specifically him. When she said she's not comfortable with his plan. But when it comes to, when it came to a specific part of Bernie Sanders' plan, there was an article written in the Washington Post, which is a publication that Bernie Sanders attacked. He called out Jeff Bezos, which is, he's the owner of Washington Post, Amazon, Washington Post, because he bought out the Washington Post, so he runs them, obviously. And he called out the Washington Post for, criticizing him a lot. And the media lost its fucking shit over that. But that's a separate story. But there was another article they wrote, another negative article here, where they talked about Bernie Sanders changing his Medicare-for-all plan, and the way that the Kamala Harris campaign framed it was like, oh, he's flip-flopping, or, it's changing his mind or something. What they did is, if you really go into the details of the article, is all they did was that they made sure that so Bernie Sanders' campaign, they made sure that his Medicare-for-all plan ensures that the people that are in organized labor, so they're part of labor unions, that they're going to get as good, if not better, care than they are right now. Because right now, a lot of unions are receiving private insurance from their employers, and Bernie Sanders has always been like, the people that receive private insurance right now, I'm going to make sure they're going to receive just as, if not better, care under a Medicare for all plan. So I just wanted to read this kind of beginning part of the article here, which gets into the details, and I just wanted to explain to you exactly what the details of this change to Bernie Sanders' plan is. So it says Senator Bernie Sanders announced a key change to his Medicare for All insurance plan Wednesday, a movement to assuage fears on the part of organized labor whose support is being heatedly sought by all of the candidates for the Democratic presidential nomination. Labor representatives have expressed concerns to candidates publicly and to campaign staffs privately that a single-payer system could negatively affect their benefits, which in many cases offer better coverage than private plans. The change announced Wednesday would effectively give organized labor more negotiating power than other consumers would have under his plan by forcing employers to pay out any money they save to union members and other benefits. One of the primary concerns union members and leaders have raised about Sanders' Medicare for All plan is that they negotiated healthcare coverage under the current system, in some cases, ceding salary in exchange for those benefits. Under Sanders' new wrinkle, those unions could renegotiate their contracts under the supervision of the National Labor Relations Board. That's the NLRB. Who's this quoting? Oh, the plan. It says unions will still be able to negotiate for and provide wrap-around services and other coverage not duplicative of the benefits established under Medicare for All. The plan now says, a seeming acknowledgement of a role for private coverage by a campaign that has railed against others for not taking a hard enough stance against such plans. Okay, so this is not he doesn't even say it. He doesn't say, I mean, even the article is being ridiculous, and it's saying this is a seeming acknowledgement. He's not acknowledging that private coverage is going to exist in the plan. All it's saying is that the people can negotiate for and provide wraparound services and other coverage not duplicative of the benefits established under Medicare for All. So basically, this is another case of supplemental care. Now, supplemental care is not the same thing as private care. Now, supplemental care is covered under a private care system. It's not a public care system because it's supplemental, and it just addresses specific things. And this is basically saying that people can have a supplemental. They can have a supplemental kind of care, health care, coverage until their transition into Medicare for All. And this doesn't say anything about private care, allowing people to have private care. It's not saying that, people aren't going to be, not receiving care, or they're not going to get care, if they're in a union, nothing like that. No, that's the way the Kamala Harris campaign is framing it. And one or at least two of his, I think, at least, I know for sure is one of Kamala Harris's advisors or spokespeople, Ian Sams, he's a prick. He's been going after Bernie Sanders probably more than anybody, along with another woman. I forgot her name. Lily something. And so, I'm sorry, I forgot her name, but those two were going after Bernie Sanders, and being like, oh, so wow, now you support a private care system or something, Bernie, or something along those lines, and they're like pretending as if it's like super like pithy and like a gotcha, like, oh, we gotcha, Bernie. Like, no, that's bullshit. That's not the way it is at all. It's a supplemental plan, a supplemental kind of service until you get transitioned into Medicare for All, and honestly, in some cases where you're not eligible for Medicare for All. So if you are in a, you're part of a, let's say, initially, so like when you're making that transition period, you have to get under some sort of supplemental insurance, and that's what Bernie supports. And or even just like the supplemental plan during the specific transformation, because transition, not transformation, but transition period, so that during that 4-year period, the private plans, or whatever Obamacare or whatever exists, it's going to exist within those 4 years that Medicare for All is being implemented, so is kind of being implemented, and but then when the transition period happens, some people are going to have to go under some sort of supplemental care, so then eventually they can get into the actual transition process themselves and then get Medicare for All. So that's all this really is. It's not the media or whoever, especially in this case, the idiots at the Washington Post, trying to make this into some sort of a gotcha, or Bernie is changing his plans or something. That's not happening. So you guys can continue, trying to play your gotcha bullshit and, pretending as if Bernie Sanders is advocating for something that he's not advocating for. So that's not the situation here. They can keep pushing for that kind of stuff and pretending as if that's the case. That's not the reality. Do not buy into that, please. Don't fall for the things these people say, because at the end of the day, you can't trust anything that Kamala Harris says. You can't trust anything that her advisors say, the spokespeople that she has say. They're just all out there just playing gotcha and just trying to get Bernie on something, some bullshit thing. And obviously the media, the mainstream media, Washington Post especially, the super sensitive, triggered assholes at the Washington Post who can't stand Bernie Sanders just taking a slight jab at them, they're obviously going to call him out and, make some shit up. So don't buy into that. It's garbage. It's bullshit. And I mean, Bernie Sanders has maintained his promise of pushing for a Medicare-for-all system. He's maintained his idea of pushing for a supplemental system during that, transition period and stuff. And it's not anymore. And in this case, it's the same exact thing. Read the article too. If you guys want to check out the article, you can check it out. Hopefully, you're not behind a paywall, because Washington Post constantly puts people behind a paywall, which is annoying. But if you want to check it out yourself. The details of it doesn't say anything about Bernie Sanders wanting to do a private plan. Doesn't say anything about people that are in a union not being able to receive Medicare for all. It's just saying that people. It's kind of a process or a kind of a change, so-called change that's been done to make sure and assure people that are in unions that they're going to receive public Medicare for all insurance. It's not going to be a private system unless it's a supplemental program during that transition period and during that, again, under maybe some sort of system like we spoke about before. In some cases, this is regarding Tulsi Gabbard, regarding situations where some people might not be able to receive certain types of care, certain types of health care. So like chiropractic work and plastic surgery and acupuncture and stuff like that. So when people can't receive that under Medicare for all, they'll receive it through a supplemental program. And this is the same exact thing that is being said here. That's all that it is. So just please read the article, look into the people that are commenting on this on Twitter and stuff, because they've commented a lot. And trust me, that's the real kind of reality of it. And anything else everybody else is saying is propaganda. All right, guys, that's going to be the end of the show today. Thank you so much for watching the Progressive Square. I'm going to be with you guys again next weekend. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Before we get going here, once again, don't forget to check out my Patreon page at patreon.com/progblacksmith. If you can become a patron and give me a generous contribution, it would be greatly appreciated. Also, remember, if you want more information about this podcast, check out the hashtag #TheProgSquare on Twitter. That will direct you to all of my live broadcasts on Periscope, as well as every segment I post on YouTube. So for my Facebook Live viewers and my Periscope viewers, thank you so much for watching me and for leaving comments and everything. I really appreciate that, and hope to see you guys again next weekend. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.